Our Faces of Computer Science subject today is John von Neumann, a mathematician, physicist, and computer scientist who made significant contributions to both the theory of computing as well as computer hardware architecture. Von Neumann was born in 1903, a child prodigy. By the time he was 6, he was already speaking Greek and doing complex math for fun, and by 8, he had already mastered calculus. During World War II, he made significant scientific contributions to the US war effort. He worked on the Manhattan Project with Edward Teller to develop the first nuclear bombs. He invented mathematical game theory, which has modern applications in mathematics and computing, but also in economics and politics. He came up with the minimax strategy. That's a competitive strategy which chooses the options that minimize the maximum possible loss. And minimax is still used today in AI systems for adversarial game playing. Von Neumann worked with Alan Turing, who was another one of our faces of computer science. And he worked with him in the 1930s on the philosophy of artificial intelligence. He helped invent the Monte Carlo method of simulation, which uses a computer to generate and process a huge number of simulated events to model the behavior of complex systems. Von Neumann invented merge sort in 1945. We're going to cover that in the next module. And in the 1940s, von Neumann contributed to the development of the ENIAC. That was the first electronic general-purpose computer. Problem with the ENIAC was it's programmed by physically rewiring the computational units, and that was really labor-intensive and error-prone. A subsequent computer, called the EDVAC, pioneered the concept of what's known as a stored program computer. That's where the data, as well as the binary code for the program itself, were both stored in memory in a common address space. In other words, programs as data. This was a groundbreaking advance in computer architecture. Now, while this design is famously associated with John von Neumann's name, and it's called the von Neumann architecture, it was actually mostly the work of 2 other designers, Eckert and Mauchly, but it was a draft report that von Neumann put together that caused his name to forever be associated with that architecture. Pretty much every single general-purpose computer in use today is based on the von Neumann architecture. You'll hear the phrase, the von Neumann architecture, many, many times in your future coursework. One of his last works was an unfinished manuscript, which was posthumously published as The Computer and the Brain. In it, von Neumann explored the similarities and differences between the human brain and electronic computers, including considerations of the parallelism that was inherent in biological computing. This foreshadowed the massively parallel designs that are inherent in modern supercomputers and in deep learning systems. So, von Neumann was a brilliant scientist who made many, many contributions to computer science, as well as to other fields. And even though he didn't invent the seminal architecture that's named after him, he was involved in its development. And you do need to be familiar with his name to understand what the dominant computer architecture of the last 75 years has been, and might be for many years to come. That's all for now. Thanks for watching Align Online.